I'm going to nominate Steve the Bannon Cannon, who is a big clown. Who can we say clown of the pod instead of friend of the pod? He the whole controversy around Fire and Fury getting played by Trump. Being first denying that he said those things, then retracting partially, and then ultimately losing his job over it. Steve Bannon is just not having a good run here. He also, was rebuked and repudiated in December with the Alabama election, where he tried to run a pedophile, Roy Moore, and the so-called kingmaker has fallen from grace here. The other thing that I want to point out about Bannon is he, in many ways, must feel like a clown because he pushed so hard for Trump. He basically tricked America into electing a fascist con man who has now completely flip flopped on the alt right populism that got him to the top of the Republican field, and ultimately through a massive handout from the Russians and a rigged election, the White House, and Trump is totally backtracked, man. The Fareed Zakaria had a great segment in his first take around how Steve Bannon is right. I mean, Trump backtracked on everything. The final ad campaign before the election, if you remember this, Rahul, was like a 2-minute sequence where Trump was railing against the global machine, right? And what has he done since he's come into office? Massive tax cuts for the rich and corporations. He hasn't done anything for working people. There's been no wall. He hasn't been able to do anything on immigration. It's a complete scam. And Bannon, I kind of, personally relish in the fact that Bannon must feel like a clown on the inside because he totally backed this guy who betrayed him and has now ultimately resulted in him losing his job twice. If you take the senior advisor role and now executive editor role at Breitbart. So Steve Bannon, you're a big clown. And I think that you should be Clown of the Week this week, Rahul. Will you back me up on this one?
Man, yeah, Steve Bannon. I mean, just one of the one of the top worst guys in this in this administration. I mean, when he was in it, and what you said is totally true. Like, there was some element where Bannon kind of smugly thought that, like, oh, what's different with this type of, the Trump presidency and this type of insurgents is that, there's this populist element and, infrastructure is important and, like, staying out of kind of international global wars and stuff is important. And none of that shit has come to pass. Aside from just, like, general racism, it's not even that, they're able to pass new immigration bills or successfully convince the public that there should be fewer non-white people here. It's like what you described, like what the Trump administration, the only thing they really passed is massive tax cuts for rich people, which is the exact same thing that the Bush establishment Republicans would have wanted anyway. So Bannon came in thinking like, oh, I'm gonna flip the script on this whole on the political game, when really he didn't do any of that except for just like,
Muslim ban.
Yeah, exactly. Except for just like spreading racism more, which I guess good job, bro. But
yeah.
Aside from that, he hasn't accomplished any of that shit. And as you mentioned with the Roy Moore thing, he also very smugly in the Republican, Senate primary for that campaign, the establishment class and even Trump were backing Luther Strange, who was like slightly less crazy and I guess less of a pedophile than Roy Moore. But Bannon was almost like patting himself on the back, like, no, I got this. I'm blowing people's minds here. Roy Moore is going to be the guy, and he came up totally wrong. And then, now his, the administration has thrown him under the bus. The Mercers, who were horrible, racist billionaires, they threw him under the bus. Breitbart threw him under the bus. I mean, this guy has totally fucked up. So yeah, no, I agree. I think, as much as Stephen Miller is and will continue to be a clown in the administration, I think you're right that Bannon has to get the win this week. Yeah.
I just want to point out that both of our nominees this week were the principal architects of the Muslim ban, which was such a disaster for the Trump administration. So here we go, guys. Steve Bannon, your clown of the week. Stephen Miller, a close second. But don't worry, Steve. There's plenty of weeks to come for you to return to the clown of the week slot.